said pull it right back and make it about character.
Welcome to Before the Weekend, your go-to real estate podcast where we cut through the noise and deliver what truly matters. I'm Kasey McDonald and I'm with my co-host, Peter Schravemade, who has got a bit of a snot nose today, I hear, Pete.
Snot nose is not the problem. It's the burning back of the throat. It's not. Yeah, I've got the man flu and it's terrible. It's like it's the worst.
Oh yes. In the first few moments of us chatting offline, all I've heard is whinging about the man flu. Hey?
I haven't. I've actually been pretty good. But I'm on the upside, to be honest. 2 days ago, holy crap! You should have heard of me then. I was whinging.
Should we get you a Mickey Mouse badge, or maybe we just need a violin, huh?
No, I'll survive. I think
You'll
just this
survive.
month. Yeah.
I think we've got some, lots of different topics to talk about today, but I think one rather interesting that just popped into our inbox this afternoon.
Yeah, where is it? When is that article from? Let me have a look at it. It's from the 10th of June, so it was yesterday this article came out. You want me to talk you through it?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, so it's a lead agent article. Big shout out to Sam and Mark over there. But the article itself is talking about the REA Group has signed 2 significant new partnerships with 2 of Australia's largest franchise networks in quick succession. And I think it's on the back of a third. So Harcourts and the REA Group announced a new partnership. That's the article. But 1 week earlier, I noticed that Rain and Horn and the REA Group also announced a partnership. This is on the back of, I think, a Ray White article or a Ray White partnership. That's not part of the article, but I think we're aware of that. So that's 3 of the top 10 have departed. And one of my interest factors in this is a little known industry group called the REIP. Now you've come across these guys before, haven't you, Kasey?
Yes.
Do you really know what they do?
Look, probably not to the details. So I think we should probably share with those listening to us today exactly what the REIP is.
Yeah, well, I've come across them before, not in any detail, but my understanding is the REIP is, well, it's called the Real Estate Industry Partners. Interesting that it includes the REI as indications. It's not a real estate institute, so it is a real estate industry partner, and it was formed with the central premise that the industry should not be dependent on REA Group and Domain for its data, its leads, or the commercial survival. The language around the REIP always told me that we're going to sort of band together, and we're going to form our own data group, and that will be the one that we use. But now we have 2 of its central groups, I suppose, signing an exclusive deal with the REA Group, which I find very, very interesting. I mean, I've got to assume that it's not all about the portal, but the part that comes with it is also the prop track side, which is the data. Would you agree with that?
Definitely. And I think a key point is to note that in each of the articles that's been released about this kind of sign up, there's also talk about this best in market rate in terms of the subscription to the REA Pro, but that also then includes prop track data and the leverage to be able to utilize that data as a part of the subscription.
Yeah, they're definitely talking about it more than a deeper dependency on a portal fee. Like they're actually, the article suggesting that they're embedding themselves into the franchise infrastructure, events and workflows.
Yeah.
So, it's a big one. And it seems like Realtair is part of that. That's in the Rain and Horn deal. That's the CRM and the workflow tool.
Yeah, that's the digital proposals, then the signing or acceptance part of an appraisal piece to then get them into contract signing would be a part of the Realtair model, as well as then the CMA piece that's a part of PropTrack or their Ignite platform, I believe. So it actually is providing under the Pro subscription, my understanding is all access to all of those tools or the majority of the tools related to the REA Group.
So from my perspective, like where does that now leave the REIP? Which so the REIP says it has actually Ray White's part of that. Ray White, Rain and Horn, Harcourts, Century 21, Place, Coronas, Bell, PRD. It's like it's like the who's who of the industry. So I'm wondering where that now leaves that when three of the majors have sort of just dropped it. That doesn't appear to indicate that the REIP even exists. I wonder if we should be getting somebody on to give us some kind of background into what's happened to the REIP. Now, last I noticed, I think it was Sadhna Smiles was the person driving that. So it'd be interesting to get her opinion on what's going on. But, I suppose whilst I defend every franchise group in, the decisions that they make, they've got to make commercially viable decisions for their franchisees, their members. It's interesting that they're all running to the REA Group and signing up huge swathes of like, they don't have to do this, but obviously there must be some kind of killer deal for all three to have jumped across and signed over huge parts of their business across.
Yeah, I think as well, there certainly has to be because of it's impacting or in their aim, obviously, is that it provides a more positive impact around their daily operations. And it's not just about now placing those listings onto the portals anymore in terms of what the total offering is. So it'd be very interesting to kind of hear. So I think that's great that we should probably get someone on from REIP to understand where that's now leading, because I think the future of data independence now maybe isn't exactly where REIP, probably was aiming for it to be.
Yeah, and forget the data just for 1 second. We already know that the REA Group has huge dominance in the portal area. Why as an industry, would we hand them more than that? Is a very good question for the three that have jumped across. But, I suppose even if we were to look, I'll ask, I'll see if I can get someone from one of those franchises to talk. But I very much feel that they're going to be tight-lipped on that one. Even the article itself appears as though it's REA-led, but, I don't know. The CEO of Harcourts Australia is quoted as part of it, saying the partnership is a strong statement about where Harcourts is headed. Well, I'm struggling to believe that. I have heard Mike Green has smashed the REA Group more than anyone else I have ever heard in the industry. He's like constantly talked about, how they're holding him, I guess, hostage over the portal prices. So I'm not necessarily buying what I'm seeing from Harcourts here. I think Harcourts is the biggest surprise out of the three of them, not necessarily Ray White or Rain and Horn. I've seen Harcourts absolutely speak. I don't know, not negatively, but how do I put it? Aggressively about the position that the REA Group has taken. So it comes as a bit of a surprise to me that these deals have gone across, but they're there and it's worth watching because, there's a bunch of other names on that REIP page. And if they all start jumping soon, well, what does that mean? Like I think within the REIP is the data play that is Velocity. That's largely New Zealand data play, but not necessarily also Australian, much bigger in New Zealand. So yeah, might be a bit of a blow to what's going on over there as well. It certainly muddies the waters. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one for all of us to watch, but it would be great to see if we can get someone from one of the franchise groups on to talk about it, why around their decision, but more importantly, maybe we could also understand maybe where this future of not just data is, but also the play around the portal. Of course, we do have our friends at Domain as well that play in this space. They've also got their data elements. They also offer many of the same, I guess, features and different solutions outside of portal as well. So it'd be interesting to see how they're feeling about this news that came out today.
Yeah, and to be frank, there are more coming through the ground. Like I've seen so many more data plays, property data plays than ever before. I'm seeing a lot of new tech come out of the ground in that particular area. And some of it's a lot more exciting than the incumbents that we have in here. It's allowing you to interrogate the property data instantly, rather than a very manual process. So I'm intrigued to see what happens in that space, sort of over the next couple of years. So that's that's been our lead story. What else do we have to talk about, Casey? I've got this other article here. I think we might move to that.
Yeah.
And the bones of it are that properties are sitting on the market in longer in parts of Australia. This is in the wake of the budget, I would say. Stock is accumulating. There's a couple of things. So stock's sitting there. Buyers are more cautious, and vendors are still anchored to peak prices. So the result is that agents are having to work really hard in order to locate purchases for those properties. I suppose for the last couple of years, I'm going to say in Queensland, the last 5 years at least, have been quite gracious to real estate agents. Now we're entering a period where we might be starting to test the agents that are active in the market. What do you think?
Yeah. Oh, look, I agree. And I think this is something that Tim addressed in a couple of our episodes earlier. Earlier episodes where we spoke to Tim at ARIC, actually, and he was addressing specifically this in terms of how the agents need to be considering here. He also shared with us around Melbourne housing prices being at the most affordable they've ever been. And if that's where anyone was going to be buying, that's certainly where you would go to in the market. And this article is comparing that and saying that Sydney prices are also starting to fall, and that we're just going to start to see more of a correction occurring. And they're anticipating up to about 10%, this article actually indicates, which is very much in line with what Tim was sharing with us a few episodes earlier.
Yeah. And most of the real estate agents I've spoken to that have been in the industry for a while, they're actually suggesting that they are welcoming this, not from, either from the vendor's perspective, but from their perspective. A lot of these agents treat this as a professional business, and there have been many agents that have sort of come out of the woodwork who treat the real estate profession as, let's list it on a portal and let's see what we get. And if we sell it, happy days. If we don't, we don't. I think this particular change marks a real new, a really new addition to the profession, where you have to start going out and considering, who is the target audience that might buy this property? Where is that buyer coming from? And what can I do in order to get the most eyeballs for that target audience on this property? So, like, I'm interested in seeing what comes as a result of this market.
Yeah, and I think it also comes back to the fact that those that are doing this already in the market are those that are going to stay. They're already used to it, right? They understand the skill set required to negotiate with both a vendor and a buyer, and they understand, the listing piece and getting that right target audience. It's those, I think, that have been working in the industry that have been now used to just that property being listed and it's just selling. So I think we will start to see potentially an exodus of agents coming out of the market, just simply because they haven't got that skill set to negotiate.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting time from that perspective, because I'm always fascinated to see. Generally, when we go through these changes, when I first entered real estate, I was in one of these upturns. I didn't know it at the time, but it became very difficult to sell, the very next year after I entered, and I had to then rely on those around me to try and coach me into, here is actually the way we normally do things. And so I can speak as somebody who's been through one of those periods on the upturn, going, what just happened? It's like the buy tap got turned off. But it leads quite nicely into our third story of the day. Now, this one came out about a week ago, and I got to say I didn't fully understand it, but the Victorian government is introducing, or has introduced, or maybe it's still introducing, it's on the way, Australian first laws requiring sellers to publish their reserve price 7 days before auction. Now, I have heard most of the auctioneers I've spoken to say this is a massive no-no. They're not in favour of it. They don't like this. they're also separately requiring sold prices to be made public. So I think their intent is to stamp out underquoting. And we've seen underquoting. We had a massive case in New South Wales recently. New South Wales and Victoria seem to struggle with it a lot more than Queensland do. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's the level of auctions that they have. I don't know. Do you know why that is? Maybe.
No,
I think
I'd probably agree with that. I think there's certainly far more auctions that occur across Melbourne and Sydney. Well, certainly in the past, I think Queensland's lower in terms of that percentage ratio for what we've seen from data. But yeah, I do agree that this is just their way of thinking. How do we get past that underquoting? How do we make sure that doesn't happen? But I'm not sure that this is the right answer in the industry. And yeah, you and I both know some great auctioneers, and one in particular, a really good friend of ours, Warren Tate, and he has certainly shared that this is a no-no in the industry to be able to disclose here's what the reserve price is 7 days before the auction.
Well, I think even on the premise of you're attending an auction and you are going to effectively bid on a property, and the end bidder ends up being market value. If you expose the reserve straight up, you are kind of tainting that market value. You don't let the industry decide on the given day as to where it is. That's my opinion. But the REIV has come out swinging on this as well. They say it'll backfire. Their research shows they've actually paid for independent research showing that 94% of vendors would change their selling strategy. And unfortunately, that means fewer auctions, more deals done behind closed doors, which, while it might stamp out a bit of underquoting, it actually might do that. But I don't think it makes their industry better for having it, and I don't think it benefits the vendors or the buyers. But maybe someone's going to shout me down on that.
No, look, I agree. I think that our market, well, across every state, real estate in general, is that the buyers determine the price of the property. It's about what they're prepared to pay for it. And whilst there is data and analytics and insights that support us as a real estate agent to kind of come up with what that range might be, where we feel based on what we've recently sold, what's listed, and where we think that might be positioned. At the end of the day, the reason that they have those auctions is to for the buyers to determine exactly what that price is going to be worth, and for us to really be benchmarking and allow us to measure those insights. And I just think that governments are making these decisions without listening to the expertise and the data that's out there, and more importantly, the experience of those working in the REI space that are sitting on boards who are sharing this kind of like sharing, saying why we shouldn't have this type of legislation brought in.
Yeah, I think a lack of consultation too, and don't get me wrong, like the government that's brought it in is massively on the nose as well. We're talking about the Victorian Labor government at the moment. This is not like, I don't know whether they brought this in to try and win more people over at the next election. I'm certainly hoping they're not that petty, but history actually suggests they probably are. So, like I'm hoping it's not that. But one extra point in there is, like, let's say that everyone moves to private treaty away from a public auction. One of the things that I know that buyers hate more than underquoting is not being able to see their competitors' offer. Like they hate this more. So, and this is why the auction process has been so transparent, because if you're bidding against me and we're at the same auction and we're registered bidders, I know that Kasey's sitting at 1.4 million and I'm sitting at 1.41 or whatever, because I'd always win. But you can actually see it. It's transparent. It's not like I'm hiding or you're hiding. So I think that it's bad from the perspective that it's effectively colouring what mediums people will now use and their ability to use that, but it's removing the transparency as well. So, look, I just hope that this nightmare of what is going on in Victoria ends for the poor Victorians soon. I don't envy Toby or Jacob's job down there at the moment. it just seems like they're a little bit listless at the moment. They're just flitting from one thing to the other to go, this is what's going on.
Yeah, and I think there was something new, whether it's just come in and it's being rolled out, but in terms of being able to have deposit released early, or the early release of deposit. I was having a chat actually to Hayley Mitchell earlier in the week just on some other things, and she'd mentioned that, the agencies are already starting to feel the impact of sellers. And she said it happens in particular areas where maybe the settlement is a longer time frame, and it could be somewhat, 2 to 3 years. And so there has been a piece where sellers have been able to extract that deposit that's been held as long as both parties agree. So the buyer has to agree, and that's fine. Now that's being abolished, and it's not going to be available at all. So whether that's coming into
Wow.
play or whether that's already in, but that's also something that's happening in the Victoria real estate space.
Wow. Well, we need to get another Victorian on to talk about this.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah, so lots happening in Victoria.
Yeah, I'll see you next week, Victoria. I'll be down there.
Yeah.
Please bring some happy thoughts for me. This is one that's definitely annoyed me for a while. It's a Sydney Morning Herald investigation. So once again, it's a Sydney Morning Herald investigation on Victorian agents with the worst pricing accuracy. This is what this article said. So guiding buyers with an average of 7.1% off above where properties actually sold, maintained. But here's the problem. They're not actually going at underquoting. They're saying that despite doing that, so despite these agents, I guess not guiding buyers would be the best way, or guiding them so far away from the actual price. These guys are still, or guys or girls, I don't know who they are, maintain near perfect star ratings with 49 out of the 50 worst offenders rated above 4.9 stars. So they're actually saying, look, we've got defined evidence to say that these guys are not guiding the purchaser in a way that they probably should. Why is it that why is it they're getting the best ratings? And so it's an interesting one. So what they've actually tapped on, like we're both aware of Rate My Agent ratings, right?
Yep.
And Rate My Agent, realestate.com.au has ratings, Domain has ratings, Google has ratings, right? All of these places have ratings. Why is it that everyone can maintain a perfect rating even when they're probably not doing the right?
I think it's how and which they're requesting that. And I think, we can all send out, this is mark our reviews here, enter this into Rate My Agent as an example. So it's, my view is that it's the same people, and it's those that are championing that person and or that brand that is potentially completing these reviews all of the time, which is then holding them to that stance. But I don't know how else they could be when there's things that are consistently being inaccurately presented in market.
Well, one of the things that the Sydney Morning Herald investigation points to is that the ratings are largely coming from the sellers, but the people who are more likely to be offended by the price guides are the purchasers. And so they're saying that there is no rating system for purchasers, but most of the purchasers don't understand this. So the rating system that exists, it's sellers saying, look, they did a good job of selling my house. Now, if you successfully sold a house for somebody, would you not give them a good rating? I mean, it's a low,
absolutely.
it's a low benchmark.
If you had sold my house and you did a good job and got me the price I was wanting to in the time I expected, I would leave a good review.
Yep. And don't get me wrong, the selling agent's responsible. That's where their fiduciary duty is. So they're effectively executing that. But one of the things the Sydney Morning Herald is saying that, they might have pissed off 50 buyers, but they've made one seller happy and they get the 5-star review from that seller. But the 49 buyers actually can't leave a review. There's nowhere that a buyer can leave a review for, I've had a failed transaction with XYZ real estate. And, I think part of this comes into the play. Why does it take so long for us to be aware of rogue agents? I think part of this falls into that. We're not listening to the people we don't have the fiduciary interest to, which is the purchaser. We're not listening to them at all. They have no way to rate it. Like, can you imagine if, some of these agents who've been hauled through the coals for the Office of Fair Trading had 1,000 poor ratings from a purchaser, but glowing star ratings from a seller? Well, probably somebody would have been investigating them earlier, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, to your point before, right? Anyone can go to Google and write that review, but they've got to obviously go to do that themselves. Whereas a part of what a lot of the agents are doing is they're utilizing these platforms like Rate My Agent to be directly, linking that out in all of their communications, but directly only requesting it from their seller. So it's not a true accurate reflection on exactly how those agents are performing, because they're not actually sending it out or requesting it from those that are also interacting with them, that
Yep.
being the
Yeah.
buyers as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I find the more disgusting behaviour is the defamation threat that came with this one. And I mean, I don't know much about it, but the article purports to say that one buyer received a $50,000 legal demand for a review that they'd put up online and had reviewed. So there are some agents actually employing legals to suppress negative reviews. Now, we've heard about that in other industries. I'm a bit disappointed to find that it sits in this. And don't forget, we had the story out of Brisbane that I keep pointing to, where another agent was actually leaving negative reviews hidden in the site map of her website to assassinate other agents. So it's probably reviews are big, they're big for agents. They definitely dictate when they're going to get listings or otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think for everything that we do, when you're going to look for a holiday or whatever that is, right, you do go and check the reviews. And so it is really important that they are out there, because consumers do go there and they trust what other people are saying. But I think in the past, when I've done consulting, especially in the property management space, I've always said to not hide behind the negative review. It's really important that you acknowledge that someone's had that bad experience, and it's about how publicly
How
you
you respond.
react to
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that actually is going to, because look, we're not always going to please every single person, right? Like in everything
Yep.
that we do, but it is how you respond publicly to those reviews that actually showcases your character, the way you're performing, and how in which you're going to, transform whatever that error might have been and make any changes necessary.
Yeah, and property managers are probably the more experienced in the industry about dealing with negative reviews, because they are constantly left, whether they're justified or not. So
Correct.
good point there.
Yep.
Let's move on. We've got 2 other articles here, or 3 actually, if we've got time to cover them. But this next article, so you're aware, everyone's aware, unless you've been living on a rock, you're aware that we've got AML CTF requirements.
There's agencies living under rocks.
There are, yeah, there definitely are. Anti-money laundering, counter-terrorism, financing requirements that are coming in. You need to register if you haven't done it soon. So it's been in for a while, and the area that it has actually been in is in the legal industry. So the legal and banks have had it for a bit. And we actually see some action today. We've seen, well, not today, but during the week, we've seen a 32-year-old Sydney solicitor has become the first legal professional charged under Strike Force Middleton. Don't know why they named it that. I can never understand. But it's a fraud investigation that started with ghost car loans and grew into a large-scale mortgage and property fraud. So this is actually directly related to our industry. The syndicate that she was involved with allegedly had a banker, a broker, a solicitor all working together. And Austrac is saying that the New South Wales Crime Commission has restrained $95 million in assets that, doesn't form part of the AML CTF compliance. Now, a lot of real estate agents are saying, look, why are we having to do this with AML CTF? And honestly, part of it, to me, it shouldn't be on the real estate industry. It should go straight to the government. It should be verifying identity before anything's changed. But look, we're in here and it's happening, so we've got it now. But this is a perfect example of where the AML CTF laws are actually relevant, because we've got this, what they're calling the penthouse syndicate, is a preview of what regulators were worried about with property as a vehicle for money laundering.
Yeah, definitely. I think, look, it's the same as, if I can kind of put just a property management spin on it, just to we obviously have the fact that we've got to transact to the owner, we've got the money in trust, and we've got to transfer that or disperse that to those owners on their behalf. And I guess it's looking at this, how I see this as we've spoken about kind of, the fraudulent activity that can be happening on trust accounts. But it's also about what's that piece of identification that we do go through when an owner says, "Hey, Peter, I've changed my bank account details. Can you now transfer my rent into this account?" What practices have we got into place? Have we got in place and procedures around that to identify that that is the correct owner? Like all of those little things. So, I think that while it's not in property management right now, I think it's something that it might be considered for, down the track, but it is actually there to protect everyone.
Yeah, well, a lot of the real estate agents were saying to me, so what if it does happen? And I'm like, well, it has happened here. And it's quite clear that, the solicitor involved here has not verified the client that they're dealing with. And it's all about knowing your client or knowing your buyer, whatever that is. And they haven't done that. So, it's allowed money to change hands or to reside in places that they shouldn't. Let's move on. One in the property management area. So we've got Victoria's rental reforms has come in. We spoke about that in episode 1, I think it was, where we were talking about the fact that they've only got one form. Well, I actually saw a prominent property manager in my Instagram feed this week, and I won't name that person, but they were saying, they had said, I was dealing with these tenants today, and I had told them they need to provide a cover letter for their application. Now, my understanding is under the Act down there, they're not allowed to do that. But this property manager was going, well, they totally rejected what I was saying and just supplied the one form, which is what I've heard it's for. I believe that's legislated for Victorian property managers now. Do you know, can they ask for a cover letter? I know it can be supplied, but I do not believe that the property manager can ask or even tell them that they should be supplying it with it.
Yeah, I don't. I think maybe you could word it in the way of suggested
best practice might be,
right? Like, so the language, but it certainly could not be made compulsory or enforceable to request that from a tenant.
That was my take when I was down at the Real Estate Institute of Victoria. And I don't actually know. I'm sure both of us don't know which is correct. But this was a prominent property manager having a rant about the fact that the tenants had actually told her, we don't need to supply that. So I was like, maybe they don't. I don't know.
Well, I think it just kind of comes back to, right, with all of the stories that we certainly cover across our episodes and those that we speak to, is just how important it is that those in our industry are getting the right type of training from the right type of people, and that's why the REIs are there, that, you should be engaging in that training. You need to understand what's going on in your own industry in order to be the best that you can be for your property investors, your sellers, and your buyers out there. So
that's a really good point, because this particular person, I know they're knowledgeable in that area. I think the legislation's just changed only recently, and they haven't kept it on top of that. But interestingly enough, I was speaking with another property manager from the other end of Australia, and it's really funny how defined they are about the regulation, because I was talking about an aspect of regulation I happen to know a bit about, and this person was arguing with me, and I was like, no, where'd you get that from? And well, somebody in our office said that, and I'm like, no, that's not correct. This is what you should be doing. Consult with your principal, but here is where that should be. It's just so black and white. Like and there's so much regulation there. I don't know how they deal with it.
Yeah,
I honestly don't.
It's pretty tough in Victoria, and I think, we have to give them all a pat on the back for everything that they've already been going through. And I do know that there's even more changes coming around compliance and minimum housing standards. So,
Yeah, so sorry, Victoria. That's 3 articles featuring you guys in it today. We got 2 left. This one came out when I was talking to Antonia. It was a separate interview, so it's not part of our episodes. But like, if you're listening today, guys, and you haven't heard it, go and have a listen to it. It was in the wake of the budget. And one of Antonia's takeaways, so she said a few things in there, But one of the things that she said that really resounded with me is I'm a bit scared about the levels of investment advice that property agents real estate agents are handing out at the moment. And I saw this maybe 5 times this week. I have seen articles. There's a prominent real estate agent on the Gold Coast saying that he prides himself on telling people, not to sell when they invite him over to sell his house. Okay, great. That's fine. I kind of get that. But I have seen multiple real estate agents handing out, I don't know, fairly specific investment advice that would ordinarily be like, and I'm not going to be stupid enough to tell you to take it from your accountant. But each person has a different financial scenario that they're coming from. And this guy, these guys are saying, if I were you, I wouldn't be selling anything at the moment, or I would sell everything. And there doesn't seem to be any uniformity in it. Like these are real estate agents we've already discussed the amount of training that we have to go through to get a license these days. What is it? 3 to 5 days is between a registration and a license. And these guys are handing out investment advice. Look, some of you might be able to do it, but my one thing to you guys is like I would be very, very careful about handing out investment advice, because if that goes wrong, wow, you're in the toilet.
Yeah, I think, it's just not a piece that we just even need to get involved in. I think it's pretty clear, and it's, the dialogue's pretty self-explanatory to me, is I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not that kind of wealth planner for you. And here's a number of someone who might be able to give you the right type of advice. And I think that's all that it simply needs to be. And
well, we have economists struggling to keep up at the moment.
Exactly. So there's no point in you actually even saying what it is. I mean, we're reading that rates will be this one day, and then the next day it's going to be something different. So, there's no point getting yourself into any further muddy water or into trouble with the OFT by sharing advice that you shouldn't be.
Well, I think agents are fully entitled to have an opinion, and that's exactly what an appraisal is. It's an opinion. So you can walk in and you can go, if this is my opinion of where this property sits, but I don't know your financial background. So here is where I might urge caution, or you might want to move quickly on this, but this is my opinion, and make it really clear that you're giving them an opinion. You're not handing out financial advice, and you're not an expert in this area. Like I don't even hear property appraisers doing that. They're not running around at the moment, and they have a license that says that they're entitled to put a price on a structure or a block of land. So, but I understand why this happens, right? Because we get to barbecues and we're asked advice on Joe's house over the back's not going to be as good as mine, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Could never be as good as mine.
No. But in closing, do you know what? I think we should talk about this funny reel on Instagram, Pete, in regards to advertising.
Yeah, well, it's come up in a few. So my hometown of Rockhampton currently features a prominent franchise advert. It's not in this reel, but it currently features the agents of the franchise office. All they've been enhanced with AI to have muscles, and they're saying we're the strongest real estate team in town, and it's kind of cringy. Like everyone is like their weightlifting material, or they're at a muscle contest. And look, we know that real estate agents love a good advert. They're out there in the public, but ABC's Gruen team are poking fun at generic real estate marketing language. It's pretty funny.
It is funny, right? But it also is the fact that there are real estate agents that are commenting on this, actually backing out real estate agents of pretty much like, if you're experienced, why would you need to do an advert like this if you actually are able to sell the property? I think I've watched the reel. I think it is quite appealing. But yes, a few jokes around about you can press my button any day seems to be the new thing on Instagram, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's well, and I hate to say it, but we do it to ourselves, like, but we're in an industry where we're visible, like we're required to be visible. It's all about our brand. So I understand agents trying to get the edge, and some of them use these hooks, and they'll come back to you and they'll go, I got more leads out of that listing. My example of that is one of my mentors told me that I should go to market. I had the front page of the paper back in those days. Do you remember the paper?
Yes. Yeah.
And I had an advert that said, everything I touch turns to sold. Now, I have seen that multiple times, but I know that one advert really annoyed a lot of my competitors at the time. To be fair, I was selling a bucket load. Like, I was doing really well, but did everything I touched turn to sold? No, it was a little bit of, it was tongue in cheek.
I'm not sure I'd buy anything from you, but anyway.
Yeah, well, a lot of people did, and it wasn't about the buyers. That was about getting listings. Thank you, Kasey, for asking, though.
Yeah. But you know what? To your point, though, there is 4.2K likes, probably even more now. Likes on this, and there's 52 comments, right? So to your point, that regardless of whether or not we might think, oh God, this is cringe, not another real estate agent who has to go and do an ad like this, it really has actually worked, and it's got attention. Yeah. And we're talking about it.
We are definitely talking about it. Well, at least this week hasn't been as cringy as last week. Last week was dark. At least we've got some happy things to talk about this week.
Except your man flu.
Yeah. Well, I'll get over that. I haven't been complaining much. I definitely did complain to you. I knew I wouldn't get any sympathy.
No, you wouldn't.
But it's been a great week. This is I think this is episode 5, is it not?
Episode 5, yeah. Just in time for the weekend, right?
Exactly. And if you're listening to us, don't forget you can go and subscribe on any of the channels that you are happy to listen to. The easiest way to find them is to go to beforetheweekend.com and visit the episodes there. All of the links are available. We'd love you to write us if you want to. It's hello@beforetheweekend.com if you've got suggestions, feedback, anything like that. We'll take it. And any kind of guest interactions that you want to hear from, or people that you want to hear from, shoot it through. Kasey, what have you got planned for the weekend?
Well, actually, I'm coming up to your neck of the woods. No, I'm not coming to visit you. I am going to the Noosa Food and Wine Festival to enjoy some amazing food and some fantastic wine. What else would I be doing?
That sounds like a fantastic weekend. It's only around the corner from my place.
I am bringing my husband. So there you go.
Well, well played. That's a great weekend. I've got some rallies in town.
Yes.
So
you're getting ready for prepping for wedding.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I'll be down in Melbourne for a family wedding next week. I'm really looking forward to that. But look, if you're out and about this weekend, happy hunting, happy selling, happy listing. I hope it all goes well for you guys. And thanks for listening to another episode of Before the Weekend. Kasey, have a great week.
Yep, you too, Pete. And that's a wrap.
Truth, do it right, hold your word, keep it clear, let them know.